Tonight, these theoretical readers will be poet Sebastian Bostwick, introduced by Jahan Khajavipour, poet Sara Judy, introduced by Maxime Berclaz, and prose writer Kirsten Aguilar, introduced by Nazim. Hopefully you enjoy this reading, and if you do, to round out the schedule of readings for this semester, on December 4th, we're going to have some undergrads up here instead of, MFAs. December 5th will be a Bricks reading series, hosted by that man over there, the wooer. And December 11th, we'll have our final and most important reading for more MFA students. And if you guys want the details of these, make sure to follow the Notre Dame Creative Writing MFA's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Or just look at the posters downstairs. Now, Jahan?
Oh.
I've decided you first.
Yeah. Thanks, Moody. Oh, Moody. Hi, everybody. Oh, I am just over the moon that I get to introduce Sebastian. No, it's a real pleasure. I adore Sebastian. Everyone does. But I'm very fond, particularly of their poems. Sebastian S.C. Bostwick is chock full of poems, is stuffed to the gills with poems. Poems spill out of Sebastian. Poems pump through the tender apparatus that is Sebastian Bostwick. Sebastian is a very young poet, but with such... What is this echo? Can we turn the echo off?
Can we turn the echo off?
Hello?
Let me take the settings.
I was going to say something about Sebastian's distinct voice.
The echo's off. There's no echo.
It's an echo thing. Sorry for the whole thing. Yet Sebastian's voice is so distinct, and the world that Sebastian creates with their poems is so clear. There is a strong sense of nature. Sebastian moves through form, poetic form, with dexterity and a real sense of craft. But they're best when they abandon themselves or let themselves be abandoned into nature. That's where things get sticky icky and a little sexy. S.C. Bostwick is a non-binary trans poet born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, a landscape that embodies many of their poems. They are a second-year MFA candidate here. Their work can be found in Labyrinth, Slam, and Homology Lit. They're currently working on a collection that deals with nature, trauma, addiction, gender, personhood, and, of course, as they say, a mother's love. But I always think that's adorable because I don't think, of course, a mother's love. I don't think about a mother's love. But it's such an impertinent thing in these poems, and they're beautiful. Sebastian's also a delightfully queer presence that I personally enjoy, and that queerness comes through in the work. And it reminds us that today is also Trans Day of Remembrance. Yeah. Girl. So without further ado, S.C. Bostwick.
Hello all. Thank you, Jahan, for that wonderful introduction.
Anytime, baby.
Okay, so I guess I'll just get into it. This one's called The Old House. I like this a lot. Oh. Mother is brushing her hair in the garden. Moss grows in the shadow of the house. I hear her singing, floating on the wind. Wisteria droops in waves breaking, windows open, tearing wood planks off. Mother is brushing her hair in the garden. I walk barefoot, damp blades between toes, roots slither through charred soil, following her singing, I hear floating on the wind. Tar seeps from the railroad tie steps, staining gravel and dirt stick to my soles. Someone is watching, mother brushing her hair in the garden. I know she's here somewhere, this blue dusk. Frogs jump away as I run, vines wrap up my legs. I call out, can't see, but I hear her singing. Leaves whisper, lavender racemes caress. Dirt and spiders in my hair, blood under my nails, brushing mother's hair in the garden. I hear her singing, floating on the wind. The house where happened. Strategically placed whispers over our forest clearing cast. Scotch broom lingers on air roots finger bent and crept overcast our clearing bare. Teething around the creaking stair, roots crept bent fingers, feast in throat, mossy lumps, teeth around the one creaky stair, a girl collecting banana slugs for feasting moss into a throat, his slurping, her sliming, saving, banana slugs congeal inside her, dust tickling her bathtub water, his slurping slime saved for her stinging eyes, nettle in dark damp bathtub tickled in tadpole water, his scotch broom lingers, his stinging fingers nettle her damp dark whispers, strategically held. Mother Gardener. How else would I know your breath, Mother, if not for the hissing slashed bag of fertilizer you keep slumped under one mangled arm? I follow your salt, trail damp, dividing vermiculite from blown volcanic glass. Will you please clean my dirty hands and insulate me? Will you smear manure through my hollow ribs and pluck your coral from my teeth? With your bare and blue-purple fingertips sing mulch a lullaby. In my bed of peat moss and your braying leaves, my eyes and ears packed full. I huff my muddy lungs filled with your wood stench, dripping tar and sap from your lips. Please, can't you plant perennial bulbs in my empty sockets behind winter's frosted edge? For your sake, I hope these sheets of ice retain some semblance of what once was a body, now 6 feet heat, decomposing. What was once a mother. This one's called The Sweet Gum Tree is a Sessile Being. Sitting at my kitchen table, staring at limp, wet leaves, wondering when I started calling this body home. Again, raking leaves, pulled up clusters of mushrooms, fruiting stalks, the shape of a person, in the space between a sweet gum leaf falling and the point it decides to emulsify. I'm using Midwest mulch as moisturizer, sweet gum spiky fruit to shed the shards of ice jutting out my pores. I scrub myself gone, I sink. I get these cramps where I imagine my fallopian tubes are withering. It'll be 4 years soon, and still I forget my uterus rests stagnant inside. A sinkhole, a tree grows evergreen outside, the leaves of it rotting. The phenotypic plasticity of this sessile being, its abscisic acid dropping leaves, growing muscles, forgetting the shape my body once called woman. They sound hungry. Ding of the crosswalk button, finger suns at night, empty streets, everything looks like a movie still. Glimpses of hair hidden behind rhododendron branches, streetlight shadows chalk the sidewalk, someone's breathing parallel in the parking lot off camera, someone's yelling downwind. I'm walking up the hill on Maple Street, walking faster, thinking, what if someone finds my body cold and mutilated in the morning? I've dropped my curry leftovers twice now, but both times they landed right side up, so I hope that means luck might be on mine tonight. I keep thinking, which hopeful feeling will be my last? Thinking, what if it's our hope that gets us trannies killed? This one's called The Role of Water in Birthing a Cave. My mother skipped the 100,000 years it takes to become human-sized. And suddenly she's a hollow shape of a person carved from karst, a place that only grows and grows and grows. Well, she never asked for her trickle to become anything, let alone this sanctuary. Which eroded first, the river or the tongue in my mouth? How many stalagmite altars will you weep before this cave is filled with seawater? Whose haloclines waver where biomes brush? The breath of my mother and my tiny gasps. I'll be your slab of limestone if you stay with me a while. If you'll kiss each scallop you scarred me with. Each year that trickles down, daughter after daughter. You soil filter, you humic tinged, nothing is soluble within you, can't take more complete saturation. Abrade the walls of this cave, dangle curtains of rock and hair and skin, sheets of woven calcite. My flowstone is no place to lay to rest. So leave your eyes elsewhere. You won't be needing them where you're going. And then this is the beginning part of a Crown of Sonnets that I'm still trying to finish. It's called The Places We Might Find Her Body. Dusk filters through underbrush, rustles hints of train horns sticky, still laughter, thickened dew-dropped blood, pruny-souled and skin-soaked, hang heavy on chest tangled, hair-drunk, fern-draped face, festering autolysis, open mouth, dry tongue, dripping wonton, body glisten, wrong kind of ripe-covered, root-smothered, drool sporangia seeping, leaves slip in, slide, curling and uncurled, catching chin spore, split jaw, seed sprouted, shouting. She whose water-wrinkled face collecting carrion, she whose maggot fur flaked and stringing, she whose slime gather, she whose oozing breathes, she whose hands still crawl in their sleeps, she whose scoring, she whose empty aches. Empty aches the sound red, algae blooming fingers, digging hands tied in knots, geospatial remembering, filter fed, scum water drinking, her black hair and swaying, her velvet squelching, her aching so vacant, a mother's milk pink cloud, a crab's gut and butter, her dancing disintegration, a waterlogged fixation, her lytic poison linger, vomit and bile tingle nervous, flinching fever chills, molluscan twitching, bivalve sweating, memory, salt, water gag, on hazy dreams, eyes something like a foggy sheen. Tell me, what happened to the razor clams? Why can't I breathe like she can? Tell me, will this toxin pass through? I'll cut my own gills if I have to. I'll cut my own gills if I have to, if I can breathe her in fluidic, her scent of viscous like mother, like salmon, neither salt nor glacier run. Flesh turned godly clean, tumultuous firth, said me to see, grant me temporary leave, and in a need in me she sings, decaying underwater hymns. Praised be, O Maguyan, O child mourning. If I could, I would carve gills if it meant belief, if it meant she loved me. If she could, would she anoint to me her silver, her precious stars? O Lydigat, debtor god of the sea, O slain glitter, O she who's gentle, sweet, she who was born swimming. So let her. Get it. Who was born swimming like her? Who better knows the sea under their tongue, in the wake that blue morning? Who else but her knows the sound of salt, congealed into silence, to pain? She whose fin flailed grasping across our ocean, coerced by mother's breath, a murmur born bereft. Who else a cradle of water and the eddy run? Who else's decay's licked tongue? Who else but she whose yearning, whose cries of mother, oh grandmother, please just tell me, flood wounds often lie. Who else but her pink silver lost to sea, whose decaying scales stuck between my teeth? Decaying scales between my teeth, swimming with my mouth open, take caution, she was moon stolen. His generous hand, she was taken soft, king of the milkfish, holding sand at bay. These are his waters. She was only a child. She was given his hands. She was taught mirages can happen anywhere. Nautical moon presses on flat expanse, metallic hands and shells clasping in the womb, her fin flick. Her mother ate nothing but milkfish. She chased the taste of salt and seaward breath. His hands. She was gasping. She has left me always gasping. She has left me always gasping for what little she has left to give. She is always giving. Her air bubbles scream out her mouth, tracing lines of grief, having never learned to swim, having lost her tongue in the process, having nothing to call home. A mother pointing, a stepfather wanting, a great uncle flaying, an eldest daughter taught to grin and bear it. Ocean salt can't be seen, only tasted. She sings something airless. The youngest daughter told nothing about this, can't cope. The distance of sea between us. The distance of sea between us is an entire life waiting. A spring of hot, grief spelled in it. Ma'ayak, too weak and open. Sakit ay bukas. Sakit is a buhay on hold, is knowing she forgot how to breathe on her own. The taste of something sweet, gone cold. Her whispers hushed, ma'init, her story never told. Okay, this is my last one. I feel like I kind of rushed through those, but this is called Bodies of Water I Knew as a Child. Skin smell of summer, hot feet, burrow into squawking geese, fluttering, bare feet in August, volleyball until our forearms sting. Spread toes white, ship between, scream, run to water logs against my stomach slimy, soft kicking, blurred kicking trees those angry teeth. Can't breathe this water, can't race along logs, I'm not your daughter, pretty souls on, inner eyelids open, I fall, don't breathe these memories in, memories can't hold us afloat. Sun cuts hazy through, water green, mother humming, sweet marine mother numbing, each inch of me mother, oh mother, I don't want to breathe if you can't. Thank you.
Sebastian, that was so good. Thank you for sharing all of those poems with us. Okay. I feel like I've always had a complex relationship with microphones. Okay. Kirsten Aguilar is a second-year MFA candidate in prose and a creative writing instructor of record. She spent last summer in Peru doing a writer's residency at Architopia in Urubamba. She is a co-founder and co-director of JKL Collective, a multidisciplinary arts group based in Chicago. Her work has appeared in Entropy, Crazy Horse, Cleaver Magazine, and Aldoc, among others. I remember the day she shared with us in a class last year her review of the Taiga Syndrome, which was published in Entropy this summer. Or more accurately, I remember what her words did to my body as soon as I started reading them. Goosebumps, teary eyes, the taste of salt and blood in the mouth. These are just a few of the reactions your body might have to her writing, which will pull you in when you least expect it, and let you out as a changed person at the end. As if you had just cried, really cried, for the first time in years. Maybe since the funeral of a loved one. Maybe since the day you were born. Kirsten's words make me feel alive, and her strength gives me strength. I am thankful that I get to call her my friend and introduce her to you tonight. Kirsten Aguilar.
Thank you. That was like an incredibly beautiful introduction. And Sebastian, that was beautiful as well. So I'm really honored to be here tonight and to be able to share this space with Sebastian and Sara. And the order that we're reading in is a palindrome, in case you didn't know, SKS. I just wanted to share that. So I am reading from my novella in progress tonight. So yeah, it's a work in progress, and I'm reading like an excerpt, so it's the beginning of the novella, and I am just going to share with you like a very brief kind of bit of context, and that context basically is that in this section there are 4 characters. One is the main character, she does not have a name, and then the second is her fiancé, who also does not have a name yet, his name is just the fiancé. And then there's another character named Oliver and another character who I have not named yet. So in this version, her name is just X. So yeah, those are the 4 characters. And, yep, okay. Here we go. It's called, the tentative title is called The Flowered Room. And this part is part 1 called The Arrival. On the eve of her fiancé's departure, she fell violently ill. They had drifted to sleep after making love, and soon she woke up to her stomach cramping. He slept soundly beside her, and through the slit in the curtains, a bright moon shone. His face was slack, still, and for a moment she believed he was dead. She clutched her stomach against the pain, waited to see if his chest rose and fell. But this pain, it was too great, too violent, like gardening clippers snipping her intestines, and so she stumbled into the bathroom, collapsed to her knees, and vomited into the toilet. She retched and emptied her insides in great sprays of mush that had once been dinner, food, ingredients, and animal. Her skin was slick with sweat, and her arms rose in goosebumps. She coughed, retched, vomited again. Her body was in revolt, organs clamoring for escape. She made noises that felt like death, like she was going to hurl the sack of her stomach up her throat and out of her mouth. She kneeled for a long time, clutching the toilet bowl, retching until all she expelled was a green bile. Her stomach stabbed, her abdomen ached, and how had her fiancé not woken from all the noise? Had he indeed died sometime between making love and the onslaught of her violent illness? Was this illness, in fact, the onslaught of a violent grief, a physical reaction to a death she'd witnessed but could not remember? She dozed, cheek against cool porcelain, and panted as if she'd run a marathon. The light was strange in the bathroom, gray but bright. It seemed it should be dawn, but the sun about to rise make new, but still it remained night. Outside, a river of rushing cars on the highway, hungry, lonesome dogs barking, music somewhere. Her heart hammered, then slowed. When she opened her eyes, a feathered moving thing had lit upon the rim of the toilet. It was a moth the size of her outstretched hand, body thick and brown, blue-eyed wings. She was afraid it might land on her face or her head, her hands or her arms. The prospect of its fluttering, furry touch repulsed her. She imagined shrieking, throwing it off, a scream potential inside her. It was this scream, roiling, churning like waves that propelled her to her knees, made her crush the moth beneath her hand. Its feathers smooshed. She felt it struggle, squirm, then still. A grainy green paste smeared out of its body. It was so thick, so real, like a small bird. She dropped the corpse into the toilet where it mingled with the thin remnants of her own bile. Again she retched, but nothing released. She was exhausted and pained, weak and trembling. Green slime coated the heel of her hand. Was it vomit or bug guts? She could not tell. She had not been sick like this since she was a girl. She curled into a fetal position on the floor. The tile felt good, cold and sturdy, solidly of the world. Soon she dove into a black sleep. She woke again to her fiancé's cold. But first, I must tell you something about this woman. She was formed of thin air, from nowhere and of nowhere, burst into existence already a child. She has no ancestry, holds nothing of a tethered past. Her earliest memory is that of finding home, stumbling upon a blue house, a woman watering a garden, great muddy puddles spilling from a hose. This woman took her in, fed her a sticky sliced orange, became her mother. But I've digressed. Our character's roots, her ancestry, her uncommon proliferation into existence is not our mystery here. I'll admit I'm not sure there even is a mystery in the pages that follow. They are unsteady, unstable, as teetering as a woman attempting to cross an angry river on a wire. Northern California, bone-dry grass, valley under threat of fire, rains, they lamented the lack. In all of 12 months, there had been 2 inches, parched. Now, water slipping down her throat, a cold rag around the edges of her mouth, cold hands that iced her forehead, woke her from her sleep. The sweat on her skin had dried. She was salty, sticky, a meat ready for preservation. He lifted her beneath her armpits, clumsily dragged her to the bedroom, and dropped her onto the bed. He was alive then, her fiancé. This was a relief. I'm leaving in 3 hours, he said. Hours, she said. Yes, 3, he said. 3 of our what? They'd meant to rise early together, eat breakfast, profess their love. It would be 6 months until they saw each other again. He was leaving for New Zealand to study fault lines, to drill into the earth until they found its center. Are you hungry, he said. He turned on the bedroom light, lifted the blinds in a great rush of sound. Day had risen. I can't eat, she said. She threw her arm across her eyes. She was naked. What happened to you, he said. I'm ill. I murdered a bug. He came then to the bed. She removed her arm from her eyes. In daylight, her nakedness felt loud. I can't get up, she said. He bent over to kiss her and then pulled away. You still have vomit on your mouth, he said. From last night, she said. I tried to wipe it all off, he said. Poor thing. On his way out, he cupped his hand over her ankle, squeezed. They had been engaged so long, they joked the wedding was a mirage. A storm was coming. The Central Tribune had reported on it a few days ago. Her fiancé hoped his travels wouldn't be delayed. She hoped the rains would last a long time. It had been a while since she'd been able to water the front yard. The camellia bushes were withering. Her mother would be disappointed. The Tribune said the storm was unusual, gathering strength in the Pacific Ocean the way a hurricane might. Unusual, they said, for water this warm, this far north at this time of year. An unusual trajectory, they said, for a storm in these waters. They predicted it would make landfall in Petaluma and then break, its remnants hurtling southeast to Sonoma. They predicted a loud night, thunder, lightning, winds stronger than had been measured in these parts since the 70s. The town was antsy. They'd suffered fires last summer, then floods in the fall. They were still repairing, reworking, reestablishing. But that is another story for another time. Here we have a storm brewing off the Pacific coast, threatening landfall in 2 days. Her fiancé on his way out, her recovering from a night of havoc wreaked upon her body. So I'm skipping over the next section, and in this section, she receives news from an old friend named Oliver that their mutual friend, whose name currently is X, has died. They talk about how they can't remember the color of X's eyes, and that's an important detail. And our main character invites Oliver over to mourn together. In the flowered room, they talked of ghosts. She had put on a robe. Oliver had grown a beard since she last saw him. There was a green thing stuck in it, but she did not have the heart to tell him. She suggested they talked in the flowered room because it felt less austere and more like her own living room than the kitchen. And more like her own than the living room and the kitchen. It had once been her office when she believed she might study languages, but that dream had faded and she remained monolingual, much to her mother's chagrin. The room had been taken over by plants. Her fiancé was allergic to many of them, so she kept them in this room, tended them there, sat with them often. She regarded them as her children, prided them on their growth. She showed Oliver one now, deep in the corner, amidst the shadow where sunlight did not always reach. It was awash in blooms. They were red and hysterical and more than she had ever seen. They stood close to each other and soon were hugging. The room felt small with them both. "I can't quite remember her," she said into his shoulder. They were of similar height, but in the aftermath of her overnight illness and now this news, she could not stand straight, had forgotten what it felt like to have strength in her muscles. His beard tickled her skin. She laughed as they hugged, and it felt strange that she could produce laughter. She recalled that his mother had died when they were 15. At the time, she had tried to comfort him, but could not. He had spent 9 months in relative silence. His mohawk had gotten pinker, and his cheekbones had begun to protrude. Now, in this flowered room, no longer a mohawked boy, he told her of the time he had seen the ghost of his mother. It was a shimmering golden wisp of matter, had known everything in his brain, had entered him and spoken. "How could it speak without a mouth?" she said. Oliver shrugged. "It didn't need a mouth, I just knew." She did not believe in ghosts, never had. They unbroke from their hugs, sat down in opposite chairs. The plants seemed larger than they usually did. The room seemed smaller. She felt the thin layer of her robe. It was only this between her body and air, Oliver's eyes. She asked him if he knew more about X's death, when it had occurred, and how. He said he did not know, just that X's mother had called him in the morning and he'd picked up. They'd spoken briefly. She had seemed calmer than he might expect, he said, but then shock can do funny things. "Her mother used to set a timer for us when we brushed our teeth, 2 whole minutes, she said. She did have nice teeth, I remember. She noticed his then. They were bright and straight. He'd had work done. "Your teeth are looking nice," she said. She imagined kissing his straight-teethed mouth. It was enticing. Her fiancé had a crooked front tooth. It stuck out at an angle. Often, food would become lodged there and he'd have to fish it out. She wiped her hand across her mouth, became conscious that she had not brushed her teeth since last night. How sour her breath must be. She kept her hand there, shielding. He reached out, put it down. "Let me see your teeth," he said. "I forgot what they're like." She opened her lips, felt them cracking. He nodded. "Yours are nice too." After Oliver left, she stayed for a while in the flowered room. It felt vast without him, so much space around her, separating her from the rest of existence. The plants, the desk, the chair. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. She waited half an hour before moving. In this room with these plants, she felt safe. Nothing could get her. She stayed until she needed to urinate. Outside, in the hallway, she returned to herself. What had she been thinking to stay naked beneath her robe while hosting a guest? And what does it mean, grief? In the midst of my own, I sprouted a small patch of coarse white hairs on the left side of my head, struggled to sleep through the night without waking in the grip of a terror dream, found my partner strange and foreign, his flesh beneath my fingers like meat in a butcher shop, his lips on mine, slimy worms squirming. To me, during that time, all humans were the same. They were shells that encased wires of veins and sacs of organs, and a dense, grainy, neuron-firing brain. It did not matter if who I kissed was my partner or a colleague or a stranger on the street. Kissing itself contained nothing more than 2 worms squirming. But this is tangential. What I mean to tell you is that in this valley where she lived, there was a fault line that ran through. It was called the Rogers Creek Fault, and to the west lay the San Andreas Fault, and to the east the Concord Green Valley Fault, and to the south the Hayward Fault. This land was ripe for earthquakes, ripe for shifting. Destruction in this valley had occurred on occasion. In 1989, Loma Prieta, earth splitting open, a viaduct down. Perpetually the threat of the next one, of the big one. They feared fires, they feared floods, but at least these had seasons. When it was dry could come fire. When it rained could come flood. The earthquakes, they had no warning. They happened at the whim of the earth when she needed to stretch, crack her spine, release a tension that had built up. She took off her robe. She put on underwear. She put on soft house pants. She put on a loose t-shirt. She thought about Oliver's mouth. She thought about her fiancé's crooked tooth. She thought about them kissing, their man lips together. She was aroused, ashamed, but she was alone, falling back into herself after the illness, waking up after the news. She was only body, and she could do nothing else except, as soon as they were on, remove her soft house pants, pull down her underwear, touch herself until the orgasm came, and when it subsided and she had moved past it, mind returned to body, she felt this single shame burning within her. It was strange to feel this way. She did not usually feel so about masturbation, about sex, but the robe was on the ground like a carcass, her underwear around her ankles, and the fact of the death thudded into her. She pulled up her underwear, then her pants. She picked up the robe from the floor. She shook it out, dumped it in the laundry basket, washed her hands in the bathroom. She was hungry now. It washed over her ferociously. She was desperate for food. In the kitchen, her fiancé's cereal bowl was still in the sink. The leftover flakes had soaked up the milk, morphed it into goo. She ate a banana. It went down smooth. And now what to do with the evening? It had not yet been 12 hours since her fiancé's plane had ascended. It had hardly been 24 since X had died. It had been 2 since Oliver had departed. She sat down on the couch, could not bring herself to return to the flowered room. What she lacked in early memory, she made up for in premonitions, visions she assumed might be future. They came to her like a lucid dream. She lived them and then returned to the moment she had left. One came upon her now. It was her and X. They were both gray. Their skin had loosened. They sat in the garden. The camellias were blooming. X turned to her, opened her mouth, and said, "They were green, you bitch."
Right. All right. So I will be introducing Sara Judy. It's been a distinct. All right. They actually save the tallest for last. But that's how we do this. It's by height. Sara Judy is a Canadian poet whose work enacts the horizon, both in its freedom and in its constraint. Her poems move between a daydreaming, a reverie, inspired by the limit of sight, and an almost obsessive reflection upon what lies before that limit. The expanse and the grain are found here as measures of scale and scope, but also of attention. These meet in the poems as geographic features, landforms, agricultural terrain that strikes the reader as much as the human and divine characters that populate the writing. Sara's poetics is one that moves not only between registers of the personal, the political, and the theological, poking holes in the barriers between these, but one that also weaves these tensions with the site from which they spring. The epitome of this is the field, which exists as once as a physical space and as an embodiment of the poem's linguistic and artistic concerns. The field is the site where language reaches its vanishing point and where it renews itself. At the same time, the field mirrors the canvas of the painting, a medium which Sara draws from and reflects in her work. Alongside direct ekphrastic transcription, there is an attention to color, to scale, to vision, both as elements within the poems and as abstract forms to be arranged, woven, made to resonate in novel ways by Sara's modulation of the field. Drawing on figures like Van Gogh and Dickinson, Sara Judy's poetry is a source of constant surprise, one that brings oppositions together not in incongruity, not in bland harmony, but as something that can truly only be understood by hearing it for yourself.
Thank you, Maxime. And thank you all for being here. This might be the most well-attended reading I've seen this year. It's really amazing to have so many people. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to read a few, and then you all will indulge me in something. We'll get there. This first one is called Invocation. Of east and west, of sinner and of sage. Go gold, come cutting, orange light, the gold dust, rise, August light, drive through again, towards sky, smear rain, pulled down by hand. Can I own unknown again, fold, dust, sharp cut edge, orange and fold and tallow, come color, cutting, come hands to pull it down, then press. Covered in your fuzzed finish, felt down, rub both sides, but leave whole, unplucked, untasted. Sense only, why, own, to taste, sage light, in mouth, my own, light, in the sometime fading valley. A Van Gogh painting reimagined in a field. Daub green, teal, blue, and yellow, let grasses overtake us, send us out beyond the manicured lawn. Push horizon to the top and stop to ask, is that the sky or a mountain? Is that the gathering rain? House half hidden by tree, little ticks distinct, grass clamoring until the house grows small and fearful. And where is the light from? And where is the wind? Get closer. The daubs grow thick, small cracks in the sky are still wet, just fresh. The road is yellow, the house is set apart, and we are in the field, gazing forward. Skip that one. I'm going to skip that one. Maxime didn't like that one. Apologies for reading from my phone. I'm going to read a couple. So where I'm trying to get to, and I'm Canadian, I'm sorry for all the apologies. I'm trying to get somewhere with the last poem, and you need to know two characters in my work. And the first is a demigod named Reverie, and the second is a character called Pastor Father. So I'm going to read you two poems to introduce those characters so that we can get on with it. So Reverie gets an internship at the Broadview Museum. The house is made of clay and mud and crushed chaff. Everything apart from the stoves, of course, and the half-cracked shoes in the corner. The house contains one bed, one set of sheets, one pillow, one of everything, but 3 windows, so that's one thing that there are more of. The house contains 2 stoves, 1 iron and 1 enamel. The house was relocated from the reservation in 1998. In the schoolhouse, we display pictures of each class. Oh, their eyes are white like that because they wouldn't sit still for the photograph. Their limbs are blurred like that for the same reason, and no, we're not sure why those ones are scratched out, cut out, blurred over. In the main building, we house several displays. 3 for agriculture, 2 for Indigenous history and culture. It's important to the museum that we highlight our history. The display mannequins were salvaged after the clothing store burned down, and that's why they look that way. Yes, that's why her face is melted, but just a bit, and the wig covers almost everything. Over here in the corner is the real star, the real centerpiece of our collection, Sergeant Bill. Stuffed just after his death, just right after serving 2 tours in the Great War, a goat. Can you imagine? In November, we pin a poppy on him, and in December, he gets a wreath, and in January, nothing really, but then in February, a heart badge, and in March, a clover. No, you get the idea. The important dates are there, all the things we really want to preserve and remember. All right, where did that go? This next one is called My Father, 10,000 Feet Tall. My father, 2 meters tall, reseeds the prairie, palms big blue stems, pockets full of Indian grass seed. My father, 10,000 feet tall, hands down church bells like hail, crushes birch trees in each hand. My father, whose head grazes the clouds, anoints the prairie sky with oil, baptizes the lakes one by one. My father, an unreasonable height. Sorry, I lost it. My father, an unreasonable height, who would be able to hold the sound of his voice booming. My father, the tallest freestanding structure in southern Saskatchewan, stoops his head before we can pray. My father, 6.5 feet tall, stands at the pulpit in his funeral jacket, smells like sweetgrass at the graveside. All right. This is where I'm going to ask you to indulge me. And I did not bring enough handouts for the whole class. So if you have a piece of paper with you, you can use that. You don't need what I'm about to pass around. But if you don't have a piece of paper, I'm going to pass some out. I only made 20, so. All right, so if you are willing to indulge me, there are a few moments in this poem that I'm about to read where there are activities for you to do. So I will give you a little cue. You don't have to participate, but I think it'll be more fun if you do. So you'll know. There's sort of directions in the poem. But if you have a piece of paper, that's all you need. If you just want to hang out and watch other people do this, that's fine. All right. This poem's called I Am Completely Absorbed in That Immense Plain. Covered with fields of wheat against the hills, boundless as the sea in delicate colors of yellow and green, the pale violet of the plowed and weeded earth, checkered at regular intervals with the green of the flowering potato plants, everything under a sky of delicate blue, white, pink, and violet. Vincent van Gogh. 1. On that immense plain, everyone reaches up for the light in the same way. Curved palm, wrist half turned, like holding a bouquet you must take care not to crush. With a curled finger seeking for the button to let the air in, to summon help, to fill the palm with light. 2. When I was a girl, I filled my palms with holes. Jesus made it look so easy, although he did it twice, and I can only manage one. A broken pen will do, or a toilet paper tube, or a curled up piece of paper. Hold your hand in front of your eyes, palm facing you. Press the tube against the thick edge, and then resolve to look through with both eyes open. Look straight ahead until the hole opens and offers you a way clean through. So if you've never, this isn't the poem, if you've never done this before, you hold up your hand, you hold the tube here, you look through the tube and you look at your hand at the same time with both your eyes open, and the hole should go straight through your palm. And you can just keep doing that until you have more directions, or stop anytime you want. 3. Our Father, who art in a tweed jacket, hallowed be thy 2-liter bottle of soda, and holy, holy, holy are the mice in the church basement which frighten you, which you must search for on your hands and knees, quaking in holy fear. 4. I would like to invite all present to rise. and shake hands with the eldest person in the room. And repeat after me. When you are close to death, I will take you to Niagara Falls. And we will stay in the hotel where you can see it crashing. You can sit down. Thank you. 5. Reverie is a word that means daydream. That means let your eyes go slack and lose what's here. Some people can do that on command. I can't. I have to use my hands for this. Last one, I promise. Hold a finger in front of your eyes and look at the finger until everything behind it blurs. Then let the finger go too. What a little thing to give, to lose it all, to be alive and sleeping, to be awake and gone. 6. Reverie is a bitch. It feels important to say so, and I know her, so I can tell you that I hate her. I hate her in her smug cloud castle with her unearned perspective on everything. I hate the way she looks down on me. I hate how she answers my prayers. Quickly, quickly, quickly. 7. When I was a girl, I used to imagine that I could, if I paid attention, paid whom, memorize the ditch the whole way home, so that in looking carefully at every blade, I would own them, and after dark, I could never be lost. 8. Vincent, when you blow apart, will you let me gather the scattered seed, unsow with my almighty hand every sheaf caught against every bramble? 9. In the field, there is nothing to focus on. That is why all thy sky and all thy storm clouds and all thy rushing grasses. At last, something is beginning to appear on the horizon. Thank you. I'm going to stop there. Thank you.